This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for the Intentionality Gurus with Candace Pollock. And today, the title of our talk, and I'm sure everybody out there listening to this, especially being holiday time, is going to really want to listen because the title is The Myth of Time Scarcity. I mean, we have 24 hours each day. I mean, we should be able to accomplish everything, right?
Well, that's the should, definitely. And why do you think we don't?
Um, well, one of it is that I think, especially for myself, I just cram too much into each day, each hour of things that I feel have to get done. And I find that sometimes um, I'm not doing them as productively as I'd like to. And therefore, I know I'm going to have to fix it tomorrow. And tomorrow, I'm already going to have a list of things. So now I have to fit this into tomorrow. Um, so I think it's based on, trying to prioritize and organize, but I don't do that really well with time.
Yeah, and very few of us do. And considering all of the things I've read about productivity and time management and all of those things, it wasn't until I came across a TED Talk by Laura Vanderkam, not Vanderkamp, but Vanderkam with a K in it, and the book Winning the Week, that my head, I think, permanently turned around. So my thinking, prior to that, I have had moments where I had this perspective, but it's so easy. I think our societal set point is to say, the problem is myth number one is that um, we, know that we have a finite amount of time, but we tend to live as if we can have more. And
Right.
then we say, gee, we don't have enough time to do things. All right.
Right.
So we forget that time is based on what we make it available for. Our sense of whether we have enough or not is based on that. And that's, the equivalent in my mind of, is the glass half full or half empty?
Right.
So where has that shown up in your life where you've had to make time available, even though technically you would have other things scheduled?
Well, typically it happens every day. And a lot of that is due to the fact that um, I just want to accommodate others and please them. Because if they're asking me for something or I see something that they may need, um, I oftentimes think, well, okay, Karen, if you just do it, then um, everything will be complete. And then you can keep going on with what you need to do. And typically what happens is I get involved in somebody else's stuff, and I allow that to encapsulate me and take me away from what I was doing or wanted to do.
Exactly. And so the idea is I'll just get through this, and on the other side of it, I'll have time to do the things that I need to do and want to do.
Right.
And
Exactly.
the problem is that there's never truly getting on the other side of it, so long as those things keep creeping up on our time calendar.
And I think we've talked about this before, that, you know, it's important to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I set them, but I'm the one that sort of like stretches them and makes them, go out further and further. And, when you've done that the majority of your life, it's not always easy to catch yourself when you're doing it.
Yeah, so again, I mean, cognitively, we know we have only 24 hours in a day, but that's not how we live it. We live as if we should be able to have more to show for it.
Right.
All right. And some of the productivity or so-called time management concepts are based on that. If we multitask, if we do X or we do Y, magically we'll have more. And the beauty of Vanderkam's book. She wrote 168 hours, and basically, I can't remember what the tagline is, something along having more free time. And then winning the week is, in the same vein. I've learned about the 168 hours when I read Winning the Week. The idea is to set some priorities for each day, just one, not multiple, because you can only have one priority. And if you have so-called multiple priorities, the thing I had been doing, then it dilutes the other things that we say are a priority.
Right.
And one of the lines in Winning the Week is they talk about it being, making it a leveraged priority. All right, and a leveraged priority is one that if you do this thing, it will permanently create ease going forward, or it will eliminate the need to do it. So can you think of an example of that?
So what you're saying is, if I have something that is important to do, it's one of my priorities, but something else is coming along, I sort of try to combine them. Is that what you're referring to?
No, so that would be the traditional way of doing, productivity.
Okay.
That might be an example of a productivity, but not this mindset change. So in Vanderkam's TED Talk, she talks about, she studied these high functioning women, business owners, juggling large families and businesses, employees, but they had time to go for a walk on a whim in an early spring time or something. And it was because they made that personal time a priority. And what they filled that time with might change up a bit. But the idea was they knew that they had that hardwired in. And the other things they didn't do because they weren't a priority. So in the book, they talk about a woman who basically was pushing back on the authors. The authors are Demir and Carrie Bentley. And they, they had their program, their approach. And the woman said, I'm juggling all these things. There's no way I have 4 or 5 things at any given time that are really important. And so they dissected what was important. And one of the things that she spent time on was transporting her kids to their various activities. And how it is with kids, and they have like
Right.
5 or 6 activities they have to do, and when you multiply that by 4 children, I think she had 4 kids, that's a lot of taxing. And they couldn't afford to hire a private driver, but it occurred to her in the conversation that she could pay her nephew, who had gotten his license, to do it, and he could be paid in essence for that, but also, I guess, to do some supervision. So in essence, getting paid to study. And that took about 10 hours out of her week that she wasn't spending driving. And then she recognized what a drain the driving had been on her. It wasn't until she could extract herself from it that she had that perspective. So that's kind of a long, wonky explanation of it. But can you think of anything in your own life where that might occur?
Well, and this probably is going to sound a little silly to our listeners, but we run the dishwasher every night, and for whatever reason, I have felt that it's my responsibility when I get up in the morning to go down and empty the dishwasher. And oftentimes it has caused me to be running a little late for something, or it's not always convenient, but I'm making it do. And about 3 weeks ago, my husband realized that he'd see me every morning rush downstairs, and he'd hear the dishes clanging, and then I'd be upstairs, and he'd ask me, like, "Did you just empty the dishwasher?" I was like, "Well, yeah." I said, "Because when we finish getting dressed, we're gonna go down and have breakfast, we're gonna have dirty dishes, they're gonna have to go in the dishwasher, and there's clean stuff in the dishwasher." And he said, "I'm gonna make you a deal." He said, "When I'm not working, I'm going to unload the dishwasher before the breakfast dishes go into the dishwasher. And I was like, really? And I didn't think he really meant it, so I didn't expect it to happen, but that's what he's been doing. And it's not that it took me a lot of time, but in my mind, that was the most tedious thing I was doing every morning. And so now I have this slight window of time that I can devote to, you know, redoing my hair or doing anything else. And it's almost like I got this free time.
Exactly. You released it, or, unleashed it.
Right.
And it's so ironic that you should mention that exact example, because I was coaching an attorney earlier last week, and she's a busy trial attorney. Her father's in the practice. Somebody else in the practice had some health issues that it took him out, so she has to take on his caseload. And dad is semi-retired. She has 4 kids, and the husband who works, and her kids are, I think, 10 to 16, something like that. So they're busy.
Yeah.
And it's not like throwing them, in the car seat and just ferrying everybody around.
Right.
It's making sure people get certain places and so on. And the dishwasher thing was the topic that came up, because she gets to the kitchen first, and she has the same mindset that you have and so on. I know with others that I have spoken to, sometimes if the clean dishes are in the dishwasher and there's still room, people will put the dirty dishes in, and then you're like, okay,
Yep.
what do we have here? I know my sister did that with laundry when her sons were growing up, and the clean laundry would go from the dryer that hadn't been folded and put away. They would throw the dirty laundry on top of it. So she was constantly washing. It was kind of like Rumpelstiltskin or something. So with the attorney, we talked about tasking someone else with that. The 10-year-old could do that, and so on, but it will require some of those boundaries and some of those commitments. But in aggregate, just anchoring back to the 168 hours. So in a week's time, we have 168 hours. And so when you hear that, what occurs to you?
Boy, I have a lot of time to do everything I want to
Yeah,
do
exactly.
and just relax.
Exactly, right. But what happens to that time? Some of it we're sleeping.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, even if we plan for that downtime or social time, I think what often happens is that, at least for me, I find one more thing I should accomplish before I take that other time. And
It's
an
always last. That
yeah,
free time is always last in
right.
line.
I mean, I come home from work on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday right around 2:45, but I'm exhausted because I'm getting up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then on those 3 days I'm at work only from 10 to 2, but I'm on my feet, and I walk in the house, and the first thing I'm thinking of is, I just want to sit down and take a nap. Now, nobody's telling me what to do, but as soon as I look at the couch or the chair, I think of something else that should be done, and I'm awake, so I go do it. And then I realize, as I'm getting ready for bed, I am so thoroughly exhausted, and I don't even know what I accomplished today.
Yeah, not feeling you have something to show for it. And I think there's nothing more deflating and undermining in terms of, being busy, being caught on that hamster wheel and just not having the sense that you're getting ahead.
Right.
So that's where the idea of the leveraged priority comes in. So, we've talked in the past about having the wheel of life and having, a sense of how our level of satisfaction in various areas of our lives and so on. But each day you can pre-plan on Fridays, for instance, how what the main priorities would be, so that if you got this one priority per day done, you could celebrate. And so what might that look like for you?
My celebration would be um probably just to get in the car and go to the park. Something, add something there that is going to just make me feel alive and not just alive doing. Because because I'm starting to see the difference. Because my husband hasn't been working the last couple weeks, he has taken upon himself that I'll find him standing at our back door, back sliding door, and just staring outside. And I didn't say anything initially, but the other day when I saw him doing it, I said, What are you looking at? And he said, Nothing in particular. He said, But the grass is still green. And he started describing the landscape. And it was interesting to hear how he was describing it, because typically he too is either doing something, or if he's not really busy and he sits down, he's sleeping. But he found that this is a good way for him to refresh his mind.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it reminds me of some of those things on television, sadly, where they would do just a minute, maybe 30 seconds of like a public service announcement thing of just listening to a babbling brook,
Yeah,
maybe with a picture of it, or, the sky or the sound of the ocean and so on, and how refreshing that was. So in the context of, how are we going to spend our 168 hours? We have a finite budget, can't manufacture more. And who says we have to stuff more into it, not stuffing a turkey, for instance?
right.
What would be your number one priority? And it can only be one that would create ease or a permanent opening of something you don't have to do anymore.
Wow, that's a hard one, because I'm one of those people that everything's a priority.
Yeah, but it's not then.
Yeah. Um, I think one of those things would probably be um, taking out doing laundry daily. I have made that an evening priority, that, we always have to have clean clothes, which I feel like I take just as much time doing. If I were to do 1 or 2 loads a week, I'd have more time essentially on all those other days.
And if you had more time in aggregate, what opens up for you?
More time to relax, more time to spend with my husband, um, or not to feel, or to reconnect with other people that I typically don't, because I have my time slots booked.
And spending more time with your husband and spending more time with other people that you often let go by the wayside time-wise, what would that do for you?
Um, I think it would start to calm me down and not feel like I am that hamster running around on a wheel.
And just taking it one step further, and if you were able to get off the hamster wheel, what becomes possible for you?
Um, Much better health, and not allowing my, it's not allowing, but better health and better decision making. Because when I'm so busy doing, um, sometimes I'm making a decision just because I think I have to make it at that time. And so I don't think it through. I'll
Yeah,
give an
so being
example. I was helping my son yesterday, and um, I, his stuff is all over the place with his move, and I knew where everything was in the hallway that I could trip over, but I tripped, and I was carrying, luckily it was just clothes I was carrying, so nothing broke. Um, but when I hit the floor with my knee replacement,
oh, no.
it was horrendous. I mean, I really thought that I broke it or broke part of my leg. Um, but as I was lying on the ground there, um, my first thought was, stop doing things that somebody else can do.
Mhm, mhm.
But I just felt like, oh, I'm mom, and oh yeah, I can move those downstairs. And because I was thinking about moving them, I wasn't watching the narrow hallway that he had made upstairs. And one of his boxes was a little bit further out into
Mhm.
that aisle. And that's what I hit, which made me go tumbling over. And Alex, heard the thump and he came running. He goes, "Are you all right?" And then he saw the clothes and he said, "Why were you doing that?" He stopped with, "Are you all right?" to realizing what I was doing.
Mhm, mhm.
And I said, "Well, I thought I would help you." And he just looked at me and he goes, "But you don't have to help me." But it's just my nature. It was like, oh, I'll take one more thing off of him, and now I'm limping around. I really didn't take anything off of him.
Right, and you might have laid yourself up for a bit if it had been worse. It
Oh,
would have
and
been
that,
counterproductive.
yeah, and that's what I was thinking as I first hit it. It was like, oh my God, um, are they going to have to call 911, or am I able to get up? Uh, and all these weird things going through my brain, in probably a matter of a second or two.
Sure.
And then when I got up, I realized, okay, I can walk and there's no bruise, and that's a good thing. And, I made sure I iced it immediately. Um, and therefore, I was creating time to do something that I had to do for myself, I mean, which wasn't on my agenda.
Well, and so that perfectly brings it around, and we do not rehearse these things ahead of time. So in the TED Talk, Laura Vanderkam talks about one of these very busy people who had a what do you call it, water tank,
Oh,
fail,
how, yep,
and it flooded the basement. And so in essence, it took 7 hours to get the cleaning crew out and get the rugs taken up and all of that stuff. And the point of the story or the example was we make time for those kinds of things when they occur. And extrapolating in my mind, what if we were to look at the way we are setting up our time use in a way that the priority is that 7 hours. It's not the number of hours, it's that thing that hijacks us. But what if that were truly just one a day, the priority, that if we got that done, in winning the week, they call it a champagne moment. That's like, okay, break out the champagne and celebrate. And that may be much on a daily basis, a lot of champagne consumption if we're
right.
doing it as well. But just to have the mindset of, do I really need to, making the distinction between being a doing being rather than a human being, a being, and having that time for ourselves. Because if we're refreshed and rejuvenated, we can, should tase me for saying it, can do more, or at least feel more fulfilled and be able to pay more attention to whether we should be doing those things.
It's interesting because, yeah, I've been a doing being my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But when we went to New York, um, my brother and sister-in-law have a very small house. Um, they have a lot of stuff in it. Uh, and every time I walk into their house in the past, I look around thinking, oh, if only I could help them reorganize this room, and um I and I, it's I don't know why I go there, but I do. And then I was at my niece's house, and that's where we had Thanksgiving. And again, I was looking around. She's got this gorgeous house, but she hasn't had time um to uh to do much to it. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, these are the things I would do. And then I come home and I look around my house and now I'm making a list for me too. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, why? Like I'm fine the way things are. I'm sure they're both fine the way they are. So I actually had the nerve to call my brother and ask him. I said, um, and I basically told him, how where my mind was going. And he goes, "You're just like our mother." He said, "She didn't like clutter." And I said, "Okay," you know, and he said, "But I do." And I thought, "Oh, all right, it's fine." It was having a conversation about it that made me realize that, you know, I don't have to be I don't have to have everything put away all the time. Somebody can walk into my house, and if my coffee cup is sitting, on the table in the living room, you know, I'm not gonna be judged for having a dirty coffee cup there.
You live there.
Exactly, and I'm always trying to make everything like, put everything away, and it's like, "Who am I doing this for? Because 'Cause I'm making my life more difficult.
Mhm, mhm. So the takeaway from today, if I can, insert it, is Vanderkam says do an inventory. It just as you go through your week, write down, jot down. You could do it on sticky notes, where you're spending your time, and then at the end of the week, planning perhaps for the next week, however you do it. The winning the week recommend that you do it every Friday, because if you wait until Monday, you're already in the week.
Right.
You always feel behind, but to identify the things on the sticky notes or whatever, however you did the inventory of what you can eliminate, or what is, if you were to change it up, what could create more ease. So, acquiescing to having somebody else empty the dishwasher would be a perfect one. And if they don't do it every day, when they're at work and so on, maybe come up with a solution for that. And it may mean using fewer dishes.
Yep,
I
yep,
went through a project where I pulled out, I was, purging my closets, and I did it this way. I pulled out every pant set that I owned. And if it wasn't part of a suit, I did those separately. And I realized I had maybe about 10 pairs of black pants that I had forgotten I owned. And so I eliminated all but three. And, that alone means I have less chance that I would wear something and then not launder it right away,
right.
or have to take it to the dry cleaner. I've eliminated most of those clothes. But that's a perfect example. I was doing this beforehand, but looking back on it, I recognized I permanently created more ease, and I permanently eliminated things that I was spending time on that were just, gobbling up my time, but not in a high priority way. So takeaway is you can do an inventory on your time, pay attention to where you can eliminate things, either to create more ease or permanently eliminate them. And then pay attention to what your number one personal priority is, could be business related. And then do that. Make that your priority for the day. The number one thing that if you got this, you could break out the champagne. Not that you would.
Well, or maybe we wouldn't. You never know.
And it might not get anything else done.
Yeah. Well, I think this, like I said in the beginning, I think this is an important conversation because I'm seeing so many people as the holidays are approaching. I don't have enough time to go shopping. I don't have enough time to wrap the presents. I don't have enough time to bake the cookies. Um, and, I've had to ask myself over the years, you know, how important amongst my husband and myself and Alex was it that we had to have everything wrapped so pretty when my 2 guys didn't even care.
Right.
And so I mean, I remember, Christmas Eve nights that Rich and I would spend hours in 2 different rooms wrapping presents. Um, and, like, we don't do that anymore. We finally eliminated that. It's like, it's okay if it comes in a plastic bag, just hand it over. Um, and we laugh about it. Um, and as far as those of you out there who are, trying to get all your baking needs done, you know, do we need, 10,000 cookies in our house just because it's the holidays? So I think it's something that we can all look at. And I know I am because, like I said in the beginning, I always feel like I don't have enough hours in the day. So,
Mhm, mhm, and
um,
that's how we live our lives.
absolutely. Well, thank you again, Candace, and we will do this in a couple of weeks. And for those of you listening, um, please feel free to get in touch with either Candace or myself. All that information will be in the show notes, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. Have a great day.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye
Take
now.
care.